They played it off. And
Well, they had to figure out who was going to the Colonial.
Well, no, that's the thing. Now, I do know this for a fact.
Okay.
Before the tournament, it had been agreed that it would be a scorecard playoff.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
It'd be a scorecard playoff for the Colonial spot.
Yeah.
If there was a tie.
Which is goofy.
And the scorecard playoff would have been Freddie the winner.
Okay.
Okay? But Freddie, before, when they were signing their cards or whatever, Freddie and Payne sort of got off together by themselves. And Freddie said to Payne, "You're a senior, aren't you?" And Payne said, "Yeah." Well, neither one of them knew what kind of futures they were going to have in the game back then. They were hoping for a great future, but...
Are you getting this?
Yeah, so...
Oh, okay.
And that's when...
He's great.
And that's when Freddie said, "Let's go tee it up, or let's go have a playoff."
Okay.
In other words, he didn't want to take it on the scorecard playoff if he wanted to give, he wanted it to be fairer than that. And Payne won it, I think, on the first hole of the playoff.
And I was there, and I remember exactly.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're having a little prequel here with Tom Turbiville, the retired sports information director for Texas A&M and the sports information director for the old Southwest Conference. This is episode 6 of Hit It Where They Mow, season 2, Talking Golf in Texas. My name's Pat Wheeler. I'm your host. We're talking to a special guest today, Tom Turbiville. We're going to talk about, a lot about Texas golf history, because that's what we love. That's what we do. And Tom, you were my first boss in the world of journalism back in 1974 with the Irving Daily News, the IDN, you just called it. I had never heard it called that.
The IDN, yes,
and
sir.
You and I figured out it was probably, 74?
Mid-70s.
49 years ago.
We're getting close to the 50 mark. Yeah.
Hey, welcome to our show.
Oh, man. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I really have. Love your show. Love everything about it. And it's amazing. You and I just shook hands for the first time in almost a half century.
Amazing.
And we're kind of picking right up where we left off.
And we've been friends. You were so nice to put my radio show that I previously did on your website down in Bryan College Station. And folks, we're working real hard to get these videos posted on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, Hit It Where They Mow, and see all of our shows this year. That's soon to be available to you. And I don't want to go any further without thanking my sponsors. And they've been very patient with me as I've worked with this YouTube thing, and they're wonderful people. And I'm going to start first with Niagara Conservation. And Niagara is cutting-edge, low-flow toilets. And if you do some plumbing or you do some bathroom remodeling, ask for Niagara products, because they'll save water, which helps our environment. And I love to say, avoid the water hazards on the course and at home. So get you a really good Niagara toilet. And these are just fine people. They're very supportive of the LPGA, especially the Ascendant Championship to benefit the Volunteers of America, which will be coming up late September out at the Colony. The world's greatest golfers will be there. Jin Young Ko. I don't know if she's gotten back to number 1 in the world, but she lives up in Frisco, so it's a home game for her. And also, when you talk about companies in golf in Texas, Veritex Bank, Veritex Community Bank, the Golf Bank of Texas, Sammy Golf from Texas A&M. Sam Bennett is a guy you've seen at the Masters and U.S. Open wearing a Veritex shirt.
Right.
They've got branches all over Texas. It's a great bank for personal banking and small commercial. They give you the attention that you deserve as a customer. So Veritex Bank, the Golf Bank of Texas, we appreciate your support. And then my 2 golf courses, Dornick Hills. It's the old Perry Maxwell Farm, Tom, just outside of Ardmore, Oklahoma. It's timeless. That was the name of the show I did with them last year, because when you're hitting up to that 18th green, it's like hitting up to the 18th green at Southern Hills. They've got very affordable non-resident memberships, 90 minutes from Dallas, Dornick Hills in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Look them up. check out their deals on non-resident memberships, or have your local pro call up there and set up a day to just go up there and play the course. And finally, near and dear to my heart, I'm an East Texas boy, and the Tempest Golf Club near Longview, just off I-20, East Texas golf as it was meant to be. Randy Wade and all the fine people over there. Go check with the Tempest Golf Club. They've got some great stay and play packages. They've got condos right there at the course, and some wonderful vistas out there. Big hills, lakes, giant pine trees. East Texas golf as it's meant to be. Tom, I don't know where we're going to kick this thing off, but I have to say, one of the things I remember, here's my saying, okay? They love it now over there at the Charles Schwab Challenge. My 3 favorite days of the year are Christmas, Easter, and Media Day at Colonial. And my first Media Day at Colonial was because I was working for you at the Irving Daily News. Now, this was a little different.
Right.
Media Day was like middle or late July. We teed off at 8 in the morning
Exactly.
to beat the heat.
Exactly.
And I pounded a persimmon-headed driver down the left side of the fairway, never found the ball.
Right.
It was into the sun, 2-inch Bermuda. They don't know what Colonial can be like in the summer, 2-inch Bermuda. But let's just start there. Those were good times at the Irving Daily News. You were so good to me.
They were good to us, the people that ran those tournaments.
Yeah.
For some reason, they thought that, to get the kind of coverage that they wanted and needed to promote their tournaments, they had to, get a whole bunch of hackers out there and play the nice golf course and feed them lunch and schmooze them and give them some swag and all of that kind of stuff. And who were us to disagree with that? But we always had a good time with that. And I remember the Nelsons started doing that also at Las Colinas, and it was a lot of fun. But I remember, I guess 1975 when we were working together. That was one particular Media Day we remember.
Right. Well, that was the second Players Championship.
Right. Okay.
First one was at Atlanta Country Club. Jack won it. Second one, 74. Second one was at Colonial.
Right.
So they didn't have a tournament that May. They waited and had it in August. And Al Geiberger won. And in later years, I ran into Dave Stockton and congratulated him on winning the Colonial before and mentioned that to him. And he walked me through the whole back nine from 1975, how he narrowly lost to his friend Al Geiberger. They're a couple of California guys. And you've got a great story about running into someone near and dear to you. Before you do that, though, I want to tell you one of my greatest memories, and I want to get him on the show really badly, was I had a session with Roger Maltby in the locker room with a lot of Michelob beers going down.
I'll bet.
And he could talk you blue back then, and he was such an interesting guy. He had just won or was about to win the memorial, where he lost the paycheck. But he had such a great career as an on-the-course reporter, and he's kind of been retired, as has Gary Koch. I would love to have him on. But you had a similar experience.
Well, it goes back to when I was a toddler, actually. My family lived just a couple of blocks away from Dave Marr's family, Dave's mom and dad.
Wow.
And this is back in the 40s or late 40s after I was born, early 50s. And when Dave Marr, the pro, the former PGA champion, was a teenager, to make some extra money, he would babysit for neighborhood families. So Dave Marr was my babysitter.
How about that?
How about that? When I was a little kid. And fast forward several years, and I ran into him when I was just got a ticket for a tournament somewhere. And I reintroduced myself, and I said, you used to babysit with me back when I was 1950, 1949. And he remembered my family and all of that. And I don't want to say we became friends, but we connected with each other and we communicated. He later wrote a letter for me to get into a fraternity at my college and all of that. And then that tournament, go to 1975, I'm walking around, just, a patron, and I'm walking there by the clubhouse, and Dave Marr is working the tournament on TV.
Sure.
And he's walking by, and I go up to him, and I said, Dave, Tom Turbiville. And we hadn't seen each other in years then. And he remembered me and shook my hand. I was a little more interested in the guy that was right next to him, a guy named Jim McKay.
Wow.
From ABC. So, there I was pretty starstruck there with my old babysitter, Dave Marr, and he introduced me to Jim McKay. So, as a sports journalist, yeah, I was pretty starstruck.
You have to go back a ways for our listeners. Of course, maybe our niche is guys our age, but Jim McKay gave any event. He was one of those guys that you just heard his voice and you knew it was important.
Thrill of victory, agony of defeat. That was him. That was Jim McKay.
There you go.
But anyway, that was fun.
Yeah,
going to those tournaments and being in Irving too.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about the Irving Daily News because I want to have a special shout out to a mutual friend of ours that's been having some health issues, and we want to wish him recovery. And that's Reeves McBee.
Yeah.
Who was the pro for many years at Las Colinas Country Club. One of my first assignments, she said, was go out and write a feature on Reeves McBee, and maybe you'll get around to golf at Las Colinas. And I want to thank you for that 50 years later, because that's exactly what happened.
You're welcome.
And I was just rereading a story I wrote for you about Mark Witt. Mm-hmm. And Mark Witt, believe it or not, won the Oklahoma and the Texas State Amateurs in the same summer. And I was rereading that story, and he said he had played with Reeves McBee in some qualifier, and just watching Reeves go about his business helped Mark be a better player in competition. But talk a little bit about the Irving News and how we knew Reeves and so forth.
Well, Irving Daily News, I was the sports editor there. I was actually a sports writer first, hired by a fellow named Gary Stratton, who is gone now. But Gary first hired me at the Irving Daily News, and then he left for the Dallas Morning News soon after, and I became the sports editor. And that's when I hired you. And one of the perks of being the sports editor of the Irving Daily News was that I got to be friends with the pro at Las Colinas Country Club, who was the aforementioned Reeves McBee.
Right.
And we got to be pretty good friends. And he'd let me, play free out there, sort of in exchange for me sustaining the nice coverage of his junior tournaments,
right.
his men's championships, his women's championships, and all that. So we scratched each other's back pretty good.
Yes, good.
I got to play free golf. He got coverage in the local paper for his tournaments. Matter of fact, I remember going out there and actually doing a 3-part series, 6 holes at a time, on his entire course. We had drawings of each hole and him talking about each hole.
Nice.
And we actually got all of that information when he and I played 18 holes together in a cart. And I had some sort of a tape recorder there, and I would record him talking about each hole. And I did a 3-part series, 6 holes at a time, on the Las Colinas course. He really liked that.
Absolutely.
The only time Reeves ever got mad at me was one time on our Saturday paper or our Monday paper. I forgot to put the results of his junior tournament in immediately after the tournament ended. And I got a phone call the next morning and says, "Where's the results of my junior tournament?" And I'm like, sorry, I thought I'd blown, I was never going to play the course again and all of that. He forgave me as long as I got it in the next day, and I did. But another story about Reeves, and we could talk a whole hour about him, is that, I went on to work for the Southwest Conference office after the Irving Daily News. I did that from 78 to 84. And then I was hired by Texas A&M as their sports information director. Jackie Sherrill was the AD and the head football coach.
Right.
He'd been there 2 years when I went in 84. And I would have never gotten that job, I don't think, had I not actually known Jackie before I interviewed for the job. And the reason I knew him is the American Football Coaches Association, every July, they would have their meetings in Irving, and they would have a golf tournament connected with it. I think it was a 3-day golf tournament. And Reeves McBee made sure that I had a media spot in that golf tournament to play with all the football coaches. And 1 or 2 rounds for a couple of years, I was paired with Coach Sherrill. So Coach Sherrill, he was at Pitt now. This is before 82.
Yeah.
This was when he was at Pittsburgh. And so he knew me as a pretty good golfer who was sports editor of a little bitty paper. And I knew him as the head coach at Pitt and, head coach for Tony Dorsett and all those people. So when I interviewed in 84, he already knew who I was. And I think our interview lasted like 8 minutes. He said, Tom, you've got the job. You can't tell anybody because we got to advertise it for 2 weeks, but the job is yours. You can go make arrangements to come on up here. And that's all because Reeves McBee put me in that tournament to meet these people, to meet these coaches, and on with my career at A&M and then into radio and all of that. So sort of indirectly and directly, Reeves was very responsible for me continuing in my career. I love the man, and I wish him good health.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and we wish. Reeves, we want you to get well, and you are loved, and they don't make them like that anymore.
No.
Couple of things about Reeves. Had a 64 at Olympic Club for many years.
Yeah.
Was a low round in the U.S. Open.
Did he win on the tour?
I was getting to that.
I know
he didn't win on the tour.
Okay.
He was kind of getting beat up a little bit. He came home and took that Las Colinas job.
Yeah.
Raised his family.
Yeah.
But when he got his mulligan, and he went out on the senior tour, he won 3 times.
Okay, there you
and
go.
And that's impressive,
there you go.
folks.
There you
Twice in Lexington, Kentucky. Once at Griffin Gate and once at, I think it's Killarn Hills or something like that. I want to say one other thing about Reeves real quick. I went to visit him, and he's dealing with spinal stenosis, which is really hard. And I went out. I was going home, and it was the day of the Canadian Open, and I missed the putt and everything because I went out, ironically, to practice my putting on the way home at Indian Creek there in Carrollton. And Bruce Smith, the 6'8" pro, came up, and we got to chit-chatting. And he said something I wasn't aware of, and I just want to emphasize this. Reeves is the only member of the North Texas PGA section to have ever won the National Club Pro Championship.
How about that?
There's been like 3 guys. I'm having a little bit of a brain freeze here. Robert Thompson, Omar Uresti, and I'm forgetting one other guy. There's been 3 guys from the South Texas section that have won the National Club Pro. Reeves is the only guy from North Texas. And one more little thing. Isn't it so cool that Las Colinas Country Club now hosts a invited, which is the Oak Club Corp, Champions Tour celebrity event out there now with Tony Romo and Annika Sorenstam and so forth.
That's great.
But before that, it hosted the LPGA event, the aforementioned LPGA event that they're going to have out at the Colony. They hosted it for several years. And one year, Michelle Wee was in the running, and on the 18th hole out there, you said you did the 6-6-6. She laid up, and she lost by a couple of shots. And somebody said, why didn't you go for it on the last hole? It's par 5. It's got water in front to the right. She said, there's no place to hit your driver there. I mean, really, you had to hit a driver in about a 10-yard spot.
Right.
And I mentioned that to Reeves, and he said, she's right.
Yeah.
There's no place to hit a driver there. So I just thought that was really funny. He didn't I thought he was going to say, oh, no, that's a good hole. No, he said, she's right. So.
Well, I reread the story that 3-part story, and the first part of this third part, I forget which one, I talked about, I said I reserve the right not to tell my score. Right. What I wrote, but I said Reeves shot a 72 that day, which I guess was even par, and the only reason he shot that high is he had a snowman on one hole. He had an 8.
Oh, really?
He had 5 birdies, rest pars, and 1 8.
Oh,
and that's the only reason he shot that high as a 72.
It wasn't on 18, was it?
I don't remember which hole it was.
Wow, good stuff. Good stuff.
Reeves, if you're watching, sorry I talked about that 8, but you had 5 birdies that day.
But the Irving Daily News was a subsidiary of the Dallas Morning News. Of course, all newspapers are going
News
away.
Texan, part of the Belo. We were
Belo
one of the Belo boys. Yes. Yeah. Right.
And I went back and read the Mark Witt story. I also read the story about the Dirty Dozen. They they went to the Super Bowl that year.
Right. You were writing cowboy stuff.
I have to mention a couple of embarrassing things. I was out there, and maybe I had taken advantage too much of the goodies in the press box, but I was there the day that Clint Longley threw the bomb and they beat the Redskins on the last play of the game or with 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Roger was hurt.
Yeah.
And everybody's asking questions, and I kind of waited my turn, and I asked Coach Landry, does this mean we have another quarterback controversy? And he was such a wonderful man. He said, no, Roger's still our quarterback. But, Clint did real well today. Well, as we're walking out, you remember Randy Harvey, the great sports writer.
Morning news from him.
He said, Wheeler, Darryl Royal would have bitten your head off and chewed it up and spit it out if you'd asked something like that. And I said, I'm sorry, but my editor, when I got back into journalism, Kevin Newberry, who published DFW Links, said it's often the young novice that asks the tough question that nobody else wants to ask.
Exactly.
And so he kind of affirmed me on that. So.
That's right. Yeah. Like the student newspaper guy who asked something like that. One thing you didn't get to do because I was the boss, is go to the one Super Bowl that I went to was in New Orleans with Denver, Orange Crush.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
co-MVPs.
That's right.
Andy White,
Dorsett,
Harvey Barton.
Dorsett was a rookie that year.
Okay.
And also what you didn't get to do is go to training camp in Thousand Oaks. I went to 4 of those in training camp at Thousand Oaks.
Did you take your sticks out there?
I did one time. Played golf one time. Yeah.
A little cooler out there in the summer.
That's right. That's right. But anyway, those were good times. Before we leave Irving, another guy I want to mention who golf fans know right now is Brandel Chambly.
Absolutely, and I had that in my notes.
Yeah. Brandel, of course, with the Golf Channel now, not afraid to say what he thinks.
Does his homework too.
Does his homework. Boy, he and I are Facebook buddies, and I have his email, and I've told him he's one of my favorite analysts.
He is,
and I know, I know he gets in trouble. He's gotten in trouble here recently. I know a lot of the pros don't like him, but he says what he means. He's one of the gutsiest guys as far as just saying what he, not kowtowing to anybody. But anyway, Brandel was a freshman when I first met him at Irving MacArthur. He was a ninth grader at Irving MacArthur when I first went out and covered a tournament. And his high school coach, Coy Williams was his name. I'll never forget, because I put it in my article on that. Brandel was so small, Coy Williams said, we got to put rocks in his pocket so he won't blow off the first tee on a windy day. And because he was just a small kid that could powder the ball, and he went on to the University of Texas, won the Southwest Conference Championship in '83, I think it was, at Columbia Lakes. And
he won it?
Yeah, he won.
So he beat like Mark Brooks.
Oh
or whoever?
Yeah, 83 at Columbia Lakes. He was the winner.
Excellent.
And but anyway, Brandel's a good friend, and his parents
went on tour. He won one PGA Tour event in Vancouver, I believe.
Yeah, exactly, Vancouver.
Yeah.
His parents still live in their house that they grew up in Irving, and so anyway, Brandel's a good friend, and he went to Irving MacArthur and met him as a freshman.
I don't really want to leave Irving yet either, but we got to bring up the LIV and the PGA Tour because Brandel's right in the middle of that, and we're living right now is a very strange time. And of course, they just mentioned this merger conceptually, and there's a lot of blowback on it, and Brandel's he called it the saddest day of his life as far as pro golf. That thing hasn't played out yet. I saw Tom Watson had an open letter. There may be some real serious pushback on this.
Yeah, I think so. And when I first saw it, I was very saddened by it because, it looked initially like, okay, we're not going to take the money for all the right reasons because of the Saudis' reputations with human rights. But then all of a sudden it looked like, well, that much money we might want to take. And so that was very disturbing, obviously, I thought, on a lot of levels. But we're going to see how it plays out. I don't, I'd love for everybody to get back together, but not backed by the same bank accounts that fund.
It looks as if they're almost
terrorism,
buying their way in and really getting controlling interest of it, like a hostile takeover is what it looks like.
Yeah.
So that's disturbing.
Anyway, that's above our pay grade, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. But Brandel speaks out on it, and I'm glad that he does. But
yes, he
like
does.
I say, he
does his homework.
He does.
He's well researched,
very knowledgeable about a lot of things.
Yeah. Before we leave Irving, though, okay, I got to go to the press conference when Randy White. I thought he was the number 1 draft choice of that draft back in '74. but Steve Bartkowski was.
Okay.
So Randy was 1A. He was the Cowboys traded up and they got that pick, and they already had Staubach, so they took Randy White. So I go out to the press conference at Texas Stadium, and they've got an open bar, a barbecue buffet for all the media. And I look around. I got me a big old plate of sausage and brisket and everything. I look around, and Blackie Sherrod is sitting by himself over at the corner table with his sunglasses on. This is about noon on a Monday. And I love this. I went over. I said, "Do you mind if I join you, Mr. Sherrod?" He says, "No, son, sit down." So we're chit-chatting, and Tex Schramm comes over. And Tex Schramm,
Blackie, Tex, and Pat. Okay.
Yeah, well, so Tex goes, "Blackie, you're not going to eat any of our buffet. We got this great barbecue in there." And I'll never forget this. Blackie said, "Tex, you know I never eat on my day off." And that was my Blackie Sherrod story. And if for some of you who may not know, he's one of the greatest sports writers of all time, if not the greatest.
It's amazing the people that we got to meet in the journalism business.
Isn't that the truth?
You know, I was Frank Luxa and
Frank.
Bob St. John, and because I really got to be close to these guys at those training camps because they were the main Cowboy writers for the Times Herald and the Morning News. And I got to be, you know, I play pool with those guys in the media dorm, and as a matter of fact, Bob St. John in his book, he has a chapter about a joke that they played on me during the training camp, and it was just a lot of fun. And meeting people like Blackie and even in the electronic media people. I got into radio, and I'm still in radio in retirement. It's going on now about almost 30 years that I've been in radio. And my radio idol, who I patterned myself after, was Frank Gleber.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was terrific.
He was. And I got to know Frank through the Cowboys and all of that. And Frank started an organization called the Dallas Sports Media Association. We'd have a luncheon every week where Landry would talk, and whoever the SMU coach was and the TCU coach would talk, and we had it down there at the Union Station, at the train station down there, and got to know those, you know, a lot of the high rollers in the journalism business. And here I am, just the sports editor of the Irving Daily News. But going to those training camps really helped me sort of get in.
Sure.
I actually, Dwayne Thomas actually liked.
Sphinx.
Yes, Dwayne Thomas. Sorry, everybody we're throwing out these names that if you're not over 55, you might not know who they are. Dwayne Thomas, who was, you know, the bad boy of the Cowboys, and you know, mean to the media and all that. Dwayne Thomas actually liked me. I wonder what I was doing wrong to have Dwayne Thomas actually liked me. He told me stuff that he wouldn't tell other people. I don't know why that was. Never did know that. But
God, you're bringing back another memory. One of my favorite stories I ever did.
We got to talk about Southwest Conference golf here.
But I can't not tell this story because it killed me to the soul. But one of my favorite stories was about Dennis Morgan. Do you know who Dennis Morgan is?
Yeah, I remember the name, sure.
Well, he returned a punt 98 yards for a touchdown his rookie season. He was a special teamer. He was out of, was it Dennis? Now I think he was out of Morgan State, so I may have his name wrong, but they called him Strawberry. He was a black guy with red hair and freckles. And I remember asking him, did Coach Landry get on you for catching that ball on the 2-yard line? He goes, yeah, a little bit, but he was happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I Googled him, and he died about 3 or 4 years ago when the Cowboys were playing the Giants in New York. He was at the game and had a heart attack.
Oh, my. Oh, wow.
And anyway, it's a great memory getting to interview him. And he bought like 10 copies of the Irving Daily News to send to all his friends at home.
Right.
But let's move forward.
Let's go to the Southwest. Yeah, I leave
Because
the Irving Daily News.
I'm titling this show. I may have to retitle it before I put it out there. Freddie and Payne.
Yeah.
And an hour with Tom Turbiville. And that's the thing we really share is the Southwest Conference.
Right.
It killed my soul when the Southwest Conference went away. And there's a particular person I blame for that, and I will not mention that because a friend of mine got so mad at me. but it did go away.
Yeah.
But before it went away, they had this incredible tournament in Tyler at the old Briarwood Country Club.
Exactly. The conference tournament was there for several years. As a matter of fact, all the years that I was with the conference office I left the Irving News in 78 and was there till I went to A&M in 84.
Okay.
And let's go to the 79.
Yes.
I went to work in the summer of 78, right before football season.
Okay.
And so the very next spring, the spring of 79, the conference tournament at Briarwood in Tyler. First off, the names, and I've written down some of the names that I had the honor to watch in college, to administer their tournaments. Wow. I mean, these are guys that called me Mr. Turbiville because, I was the administrator,
Right.
and they were the kid golfers, right? But I wrote down some names from University of Houston. And true golf fans will remember all of these names. Of course, Freddie Couples, Blaine McAllister, Ray Barr, Steve Elkington, major tournament winner. Billy Ray Brown does TV for the senior circuit now, right? John Slaughter. Those are the main names that I from UH. At UT, Mark Brooks, Brandel Chambly, Phil Blackmar. Okay. SMU, Payne Stewart. A&M, where I later went to work, both Dave Ogren, who won the 1996 Texas Open, and who am I missing from A&M? I should know.
Well, Steve Bowman's Tyler guy.
Steve Bowman was a little bit after me.
He was third in this aforementioned 79 tournament we're going to talk about.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I got to be around so many of these people. But anyway, go back to the 79 tournament.
And I want to say Lamar Haynes played for SMU, my buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows Lamar, great guy, good, still a good golfer.
Exactly.
And roommate of Payne Stewart's.
Exactly.
But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. 79. Here's what happened to the best of my knowledge and what I was told.
Now, before you do that, let's do a little aside here.
Okay.
You helped a guy get into broadcasting that people may have heard of.
Okay.
Let's do that first.
We can tell that story first.
Do that.
But that was actually was
that later?
No, that was earlier.
Earlier, okay.
Southwest Conference would have a fall tournament in Texarkana.
That was your first
kick
tournament?
things off.
Yeah.
This was right after I'd gone to work in 78. This was like in August.
Right.
In Texarkana, they had a fall tournament. It was a match play kind of a tournament.
Which is a great golf course,
Texarkana Country Club.
Yeah.
And I am. It's before the first round of the tournament starts. And I'm sitting in a golf cart outside the clubhouse, and a fella comes up to me. I'm administering this tournament. I'm doing the pairings and all of this, things that go with that. And a fella comes up to me and says, Mr. Turbiville, I'm Freddie Couples, and with the Houston golf team. And I said, yeah, Freddie, I know who you are. And he said, well, I was wondering if we have a fellow with us who's an alternate, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to play because we have a full team. But we were wondering if you had anybody to announce the players on the first tee, to introduce them for this tournament. And I said, Freddie, we don't. Said that, but that really sounds good. Said, yeah, I mean, I don't have any equipment or anything like that. And he says, well, he has an amplifier and a microphone. He just brought it in case this was possible. And I said, well, good. Yeah, where is he? And he said, well, this is my suite mate, Jim Nance. And anyway, I shake hands with little Jimmy Nance, who is actually he actually played on the Houston golf team. If you look at their roster, one year.
He was never too little. He's a tall guy.
Yeah, tall guy.
Yeah.
He played 1 year in 78. He was actually on the golf team.
Okay.
But evidently, as a golfer, he turned out to be a great announcer. So,
Well, like a lot of us, he's better at talking than playing. Okay,
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I always say that I gave Jim Nance his start in broadcasting.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I got to visit with Jim several times since then at football games and stuff like that. And I tell him the story, and he says, Tom, you're right. So I said, good. So whenever I ask, will you back me up on that story? He said, yes, I will. So anyway, that was kind of fun. But
nice man. Very nice man.
Oh, yeah. Just tremendous fella. So let's go to the 79 tournament.
Sure.
And in in Tyler. The Colonial, and I think this was the first year that they did this. I believe it was the first year. The Colonial offered one sponsor exemption spot to the champion of the Southwest Conference tournament in the upcoming Colonial. One spot
The
only.
individual champ.
It was in the coaches meeting with the Colonial people. The question came up, said, okay, what if there is a tie? Because the Southwest Conference did not play off ties. They named them co-champions.
Right.
Okay? No playoff. That was their
I
policy.
think the NCAA had the same policy.
Yeah, that was their policy.
Yeah.
They were co-champs. And it was agreed at the meeting that if there was a tie, that it would be a scorecard playoff. In other words, going backwards from 18. You know, if one player had a better score on 18, that player would get the Colonial spot. Okay, go to the last day. Tournament's over. We have a tie between Freddie Couples of Houston and Payne Stewart of SMU. Freddie had the scorecard advantage. Freddie could have kept his mouth shut, said nothing, and he would have gone on to Colonial per the agreement. Well, the story goes like this, and I wasn't in on this meeting, but the story goes like this, that Freddie got Payne off to the side in the 19th
Houston had
hole
won
there.
the team.
Houston
because
had
of
won
couples.
the team,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Got Payne off to the side. And the story that I heard, and I have no reason to doubt it, is that Freddie said to Payne, you're a senior, aren't you? And in fact, Payne was a senior, Freddie was a junior. Freddie would go on to skip his senior year, as it turned out. But anyway, Freddie said, let's go tee it up. Let's play it off. And Payne, sort of in amazement, said, well, I don't know what he said. I wasn't there, but something like, are you serious? And he said, yeah. Said, you know, because neither one of them, you understand, could look into a crystal ball and see what kind of success that they would have in the future,
Exactly.
that they'd both become major tournament winners and
Exactly.
and these top-notch golfers. So Payne said, well, sure, thank you. And they went out and they played it off. And I think I was still in the clubhouse administering, and you were there, and you saw that playoff.
Oh, we were there. Yeah.
And you watched them, and Payne won it on the I think the first playoff hole.
That's
and
right.
Payne went to the Colonial instead of Freddie, who could have kept his mouth shut and gotten the Colonial spot. That's always been a great
We were out
story.
singing Fort Worth, I Love You. You know, we were having a big time. I was in my 20s then. But I wanted to say about Freddie and Briarwood and Payne, we did a little plaque, and it subsequently got thrown away because they've redone it. It's Cascades now. It's very nice and has developed. It's a housing development there. But we did a plaque after Payne was killed called First Sign of Greatness. And he beat Freddie in that playoff, and he didn't make the cut at Colonial. He shot 150.
Right.
But that was his start. And soon after, he went over and played in Asia, met his wife, and got his tour card and won the Quad Cities, and he was off and running. But Briarwood back then was I'm going to say this the way I see it, was a poor man's Pine Valley. I've never played Pine Valley. I've seen Shell Wonderful World of Golf. I've heard all about it. You hit it off the fairway at Pine Valley, you're in some loose sand. And I think they've made Pinehurst number 2 a little bit that way. But in those days, I don't care who you were. If you hit it off the fairway into that loose sand, you've got a serious problem. In other words, you've got to pick it perfectly out of there to advance it. And Freddie hit this moon ball off the tee. They didn't call him Boom Boom for nothing. And it went off to the right a little bit, and he got down there, and he's basically had a fried egg in the rough. And anyway, Payne made par, and Freddie made 6, and that's how that ended. But I'll tell you another magnanimous
Really neat story.
Yeah, thank you. About how nice a guy Freddie is.
He was a writer, not a talker, folks.
Right. Magnanimous. I can
You
say
got it.
that.
Bingo.
I've got a college degree from SMU. Okay. Don't want to get puffed up. But anyway, Andy Dillard, his great story about birdieing the first 6 holes at the U.S. Open in 1992 and didn't even have time to do his laundry when they interviewed him. Birdied the first 6 holes of the U.S. Open. It's an incredible story. But Freddie got wind of it, and he was already affiliated with Ashworth. Next day, Dillard's very close to Couples in the locker room. Next day, he had 6 new shirts in his locker with a note from Freddie Couples. Hey, I hope this tides you over.
Yeah.
And no pun intended.
Right.
But anyway, tip of the hat to Fred Couples. He's still playing good at 66 or whatever he is now, 65 or 4, 3. I don't know what he is. Yeah.
And the thing is, several years ago, I was at it was a regional tournament here in Dallas, basketball. I'm talking about now, a basketball tournament that the Cougars were playing in, and I'm at press row. I think I'm with A&M then, because maybe A&M was there also, and I was covering the tournament, and Freddie comes and sits down a couple of chairs from me there at press row.
Yeah,
somehow Freddie Couples got a media pass. Can you imagine that? And so anyway, I walk up to him and reintroduce myself to him, and he remembers me from the old Southwest Conference days and all that. And I reminded him about the Payne Stewart story and all of that, and how I was one of the people that have been spreading that story and all of that. And he thanked me for that, but he really didn't, he didn't want to go on and talk about that. It wasn't like some big badge that he was wearing. I think that was just the kind of guy that he was, and I was just fortunate to be there to witness all that, and to actually know Payne Stewart, and then later what a sad tragic story that became. But Payne was exactly the kind of nice guy, flamboyant guy. He
died flamboyantly.
Yeah, he did.
That's the way I don't know how to say this other than that's the way God planned it, because he touched a lot of people with that funeral there.
That's right.
But he was truly a nice man.
He was. Yeah, he was. And but those guys that I got to be around, and some of those names that I mentioned that did not go on to have really outstanding pro careers, like Blaine McAllister, a guy who, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he the one that swung right and putted left? I believe he putted left. Didn't
he began to
he was
putt
a
left-handed, and I think he had some issues. I wanted to tell you something great about Blaine McAllister.
Okay. But aren't I right? Didn't he swing right and putt left?
Yeah, he began to putt left-handed. I think he even putted cross-handed left-handed, which is the last house on the block. But he was at the Hall of Fame banquet one year in San Antonio Country Club, and he was talking. I was waiting patiently for him, and he noticed I was waiting for him, so he came over, and I said, Blaine, Pat Wheeler from Tyler, I remember you from college days and everything, and I said, I was at the Masters a few years ago, and you were on the putting green. I meant to call you out and ask you a question. He goes, oh, really? Well, what's that? I was going to ask you, is this as big a deal as the Briarwood Invitational? And to my amazement, he went, oh, heck no. No way. I said, are you serious? He goes, there was nothing bigger than a Briarwood Invitational when you're 19 years old and from Fort Stockton, Texas. He won it twice. So he won the Calcutta tournament in the summer there.
Well, I'll tell you what you could have asked him about. I know you asked him about Briarwood because you're a Tyler boy.
Yeah.
But I remember being in a hotel room with the Houston golf team one evening after a round, and there were 4 or 5 of them there, and Blaine was one of them, and they were talking and telling me, I was very naive, they were telling me about, this goes to your beer and barbecue book, about the tournament at Center, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Center, Texas.
Yes.
And, look it up, folks. Google it. Google up Center, Texas, Calcutta, and see evidently that was the biggest Calcutta where amateur golfers may or may not be able to get a tip for carrying a member's clubs to their car for them.
Well, it's called
especially if they had played real well.
The law of the West. 10% commission on whatever the guy made that bought you.
Exactly.
And the Center Calcutta in 1982 went over $100,000. Now think about that in today's dollars. 40 years later, that's $500,000 or something.
Right.
At a little chicken town, it was a chicken shipping town. They grew. poultry farms all over. I mean, this is deep East Texas.
Right. I didn't know anything about this.
It's halfway between Shreveport and Beaumont, right there in the piney woods.
I'm here.
Ben Crenshaw won it.
I'm a conference.
Bruce Litsky won it.
I'm a conference office official.
Oh, right. You couldn't know about it.
I'm sitting here thinking, should I be listening to all of this? So I'm like,
Well, Keith Fergus won it, and I asked Keith about it 10 years ago, and he said, was I supposed to get some money? I never got any money. And his wife laughed. Now, whether she was laughing at that, I don't know. But
I think the statute of limitations is up on all of us on that one.
Keith Fergus belongs in the Texas Golf Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. He won 3 on the regular tour, 3 on the .com tour, and 3 on the senior tour from Killeen, Texas.
Right.
Come on, put him in there. I have suggested a legendary division. In other words, people that have been passed over, because people have forgotten Keith Fergus and Tom Jenkins. I don't know if you knew Tom or not.
I
Tom
remember
lives in Austin,
name.
and he only won 1 on the regular tour, but he won about 7 or 8 on the senior tour.
Right.
But I did not realize you were such a golf fanatic. I didn't realize it at the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've been playing since my daddy
Oak Hills,
sold
George Mayshock.
My daddy, who very sadly died when I was 14, but before that, we were members of Oak Hills in San Antonio. Warren Smith, who was the pro back then, was also our neighbor, lived right across the street. Warren went on, he left Oak Hills and went to Cherry Hills in Denver to become the pro there.
Strong, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's where I got into golf, was at Oak Hills. Now, Mayshock, and it's really, Mayshock and I are the same age.
And Mayshock is my trusty sidekick.
Yeah. I'm exactly.
He can sing and play golf. He's never missed a fairway.
He and I are the same age. I'm going to be 75 coming up soon. And he and I are the same age, but I don't remember he and I running in together on the golf circuit when we were kids. I think he might have been a San Antonio Country Club guy or played somewhere else other than Oak Hills.
Well, his dad had a driving range down there,
right.
but he was the green superintendent at Oak Hills when George was a little guy.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I played mainly junior tournaments at Oak Hills.
Okay.
Now, later on, when we were in our teens and our 20s and we were playing state amateurs at Brackenridge.
Right. Brackenridge Park. What a great Park. Texas treasure.
Right.
Yeah.
I played in those tournaments, and I think he did also. I saw something the other day in an old newspaper article that I was playing in the championship flight where I had no business at all playing. I was playing in the championship flight, and I think I sent you an article to where I think Mayshock and Tom Kite and Bruce Litsky were playing like in the 7th and 8th flights.
I saw that.
Texas State Amateur. So, think about that.
There were some other names that popped out on that thing. Dean Overturf.
Yeah. He was
Bruce Stensrud, who went on to play football at OU from Dallas.
Right. But the winner was Hal Underwood.
Yeah,
he won
Del Rio.
He won that tournament that I'm talking about,
Del
I think,
Rio.
in 78 or 79.
Yeah.
But that was played at
68.
Brackenridge. Yeah, 68.
Yeah.
Right.
Rodney Allen, my big brother at fraternity at SMU, his name's on there. He was a good player at Woodrow Wilson High School.
I'm going to have to send you that whole list.
Yes, you got to.
Because you could probably come up with some names.
Now,
there.
you mentioned something. I'm gonna. This hopefully doesn't offend anyone, but I like to say this. In my opinion, Fort Worth is the greatest golf town in Texas, closely followed by San Antonio.
Well,
what would you do with that statement?
Fort Worth, just because of the Colonial, and Shady Oaks, where Ben Hogan, you think of everything that's associated with Fort Worth. Ben Hogan, Colonial, the golf courses
Byron Nelson.
there. Yeah, Byron Nelson.
Glen Garden, they caddied at Glen Garden.
Right. But San Antonio, it's my hometown.
Yeah.
And
Texas Open is... I think the 6th longest pro tournament in the world.
I fell in love with golf when the Texas Open was played at Oak Hills 4 years in a row.
Oh yeah,
and Arnold Palmer won all 4 of them.
Wow.
And I don't know.
Out there as a kid?
I watched Arnold Palmer win all 4 Texas Opens that were played at Oak Hills, and I think I could be totally wrong on this, but I don't know. That may still be a record for a golfer winning the same tournament that many times in a row. 4 times in a row was Palmer at Oak Hills. I could be wrong on that. And it also could be just 3 in a row, but I think it was 4. And
that's a tough thing to do.
Anyway, I watched him play. Oak Hill's a very unique course. It's number 18 is a par 3.
Oh,
So it's number 9.
I know.
Yeah. And but anyway, that's where I grew up.
It's one of those courses that looks like you can overpower it, but you better not. You better think about where you're hitting your ball at Oak Hills. It's a Tillinghast. Right. It's a wonderful design.
George Tucker was a high school friend of mine who played on that UT team with George Maychok.
That's right.
On the NCAA championship.
Maychok won the 70 Center Invitational.
Oh, he did?
I think his wife got some new furniture. But I love to introduce him one night. He plays the guitar and sings. He's half Harvey Pinnock, half Willie Nelson.
Right.
And when I introduced him, I said, folks, he won the 1970 Center Invitational. And you can't fake that.
No, you can't. You can't fake that. But no, I grew up on Oak Hills, and that's where I learned to play golf. I remember my dad was a car dealer, and he supplied the car one year for Doug Sanders.
Oh my gosh!
And Doug was just really schmoozing my dad because he got to drive my dad's Lincoln or Mercury around that week, and I got to meet Doug Sanders, and it was I learned golf through my dad, and you're right, I'm a golf fanatic, always have been.
It's great, and you know, Maychok has a great saying. Golf is the world's largest small fraternity, and Harvey Pinnock said it a different way. If you love golf, you're my friend. And it's kind of a cool thing. And I think that reminds me, this is a shameless plug before we get off. But
by the way, can I say one thing?
Yeah, please.
Since we've been talking the last hour, my mind's been going crazy of an A&M golfer that I forgot, and I don't know why, because he's one of my good friends, Danny Briggs. I didn't say Danny Briggs.
Harris, Texas.
When I said A&M golfer, he won the Southwest Conference tournament down in Missouri City.
One of the coolest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, Danny Briggs, of course.
And Bobby Nichols went to A&M.
Bobby Nichols, that's quite a bit before our time.
Well, he was. Nice man.
He's still A&M's only major championship winner, won the PGA.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Henry Ransom was famous coach there.
Was his coach. Yeah. And, of course, Bob Ellis coached for so many years after that, too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the Fringe Runner.
Well, the Fringe Runners is my latest effort. It's about golf's unsung heroes. There's a big chapter in there about Don January. Sammy Rachels is the Fringe Runner. Crenshaw's in it. Ben Smith. What a story Ben Smith is, from Grand Prairie, Texas. Shade Tree car mechanic, but made over $2 million on the senior tour. Never won.
Right.
But he won a lot of money. And then, while you Amazon, the Fringe Runner, and also when golf was fun on the Amazon, that's the beer and barbecue book, all about Center and the Briarwood Invitationals, and just my love affair with golf. Both of them are. And Tom,
I love your beer and barbecue book. I really did. And my fee for doing this show is you're going to give me that book, right?
I've given you. It's signed to you because the best is yet to come. Even when we're this old, golf in heaven will be a distance control because everybody hits it straight.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what else was I going to say? I'm forgetting a little something I wanted to say. But, just thank you for being so encouraging to me in these latest endeavors with the radio and now the podcast. And then it's just great to see you and have you on the show.
Well, my plug will say that, I try to put your podcast on my website in Bryan College Station, which is where I live, in College Station, on bcsball.com. I do a little play-by-play for high school sports down there at bcsball.com, and it's going really well, and that's what I do in retirement right now. But I want to thank you for applying for that job back in 1974 at the Irving Daily News, and that I was smart enough to hire you.
Well, thank you. Oh, I did want to mention we lost Denny Freeman in January.
Yes.
And Denny Freeman was the AP golf writer for 35 years. He covered 30-something Masters.
Yeah.
And he said something very endearing to me. He said, I've known all these people leave journalism. You're the only guy I've ever known come back to it. And then to have Russ Pate and you now on this show.
Yeah. Well,
what a treasure you guys are.
Two good friends. I know you got a split. It's sat in this chair, close to this chair. Russ Pate, just a few weeks ago. Russ Pate was a dorm floor mate of mine at Texas Tech at good old Thompson Hall. T Hall, there you go.
Guns up.
Yeah. And a few weeks ago, you had on your show Randy Wolf.
Yes.
Randy and I have been childhood friends because our parents were such good friends. Matter of fact, I've got a picture of Randy's mother and my mother, both pregnant at the same time, one with Randy and one with my older brother. So that's how long my family has known Randy Wolf, since before he was born, actually. So,
Randy's relatives, remember, at the Byron Nelson?
I was one of Randy's relatives in the 1970 Byron Nelson when he was third behind Nicholas and Palmer. Yeah.
Well, let's finish with that. We're up against the deadline here. Let's finish with that. I asked Randy, and I already told my greatest golf round. What is your greatest round of golf?
When I was at Texas Tech, playing at Meadowbrook course out there in Lubbock next to Prairie Dog Town. And I had tried to make the Texas Tech golf team, but wasn't quite good enough, so I played intramural golf, which is where I met Gary Blair for the first time, the A&M basketball coach. And I shot my only sub-70 round. I was a flat belly playing pretty good golf back there, and I shot a 68.
Wow.
And with I'm not going to say I didn't bump it a couple of times, but 68 with bumping it a couple of times. But
now, what do you mean by that? Improving your lie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't take a mulligan. Somebody asked me.
No mulligans.
I said, you don't take mulligans in golf.
And then talk about your score.
Yeah.
I've had 2 hole-in-ones.
Oh wow.
Yeah. One of them
tied.
Yeah. One of them I won a trip, me and my wife, to Hawaii.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Won it at a charity tournament for Young Life. Yeah.
Good for you.
Went to Hawaii for 1 hole-in-one. So, I have a lot of great golf memories.
We still got to get on the links. We'll have to let the weather cool down a little bit.
I know, because we can hit it from the senior tees now, can't we?
Yes, we are. I play up front. Well, folks, we're out of time.
It's been
Tom
great.
Turbiville, it's been great. I want to mention this is episode 6. I'm planning a show with architect Chet Williams for episode 7, so be sure and look for that. But tell your friends about Hit It Where They Mow. It's on YouTube channel, and when you go to YouTube, you can watch a little bit now, a little bit later. And so we'll just leave it at that. Until next time, Hit It Where They Mow. Thank you, Tom Turbiville.
Thank you, Pat.